Hello friends, and welcome back. I'm wearing these really yellow tinted glasses today because my eyes have really been bothering me, and these have a different type of prescription, and the yellow blocking really helps a lot with eye fatigue. So yeah, I'm wearing really yellow glasses today. But for today's video, we are going to do a longer form version of my Stardew Valley IRL aka gardening series. If you haven't seen it, it is mostly just on TikTok, and there's also a playlist on YouTube of my YouTube shorts of basically doing gardening stuff and relating it back to Stardew, or showing you that you can do Stardew in real life. Also showing people how to garden, about gardening, different ways that you can garden, different educational things, and also just for fun as well. And so this specific video is going to be a longer form version of that series. However, it's going to be geared towards a pollinator garden. So there is a special program in Minnesota from an organization called BlueThumb. You can check out their website at bluethumb.org, and they call it the Lawns to Legumes grant. There is a spring and summer grant and a fall and winter grant. So there's 2 periods of the year in which you can apply for this grant. I applied in early spring, which means that I got the fall grant. Now, I was very excited when I got the news that I was accepted to receive this grant. I was so excited. I almost cried at work when I got the email. But with that pollinator grant and with the Stardew Valley IRL aka gardening series, I want to make this video a little bit more educational in terms of pollinators and gardening and things like that. Now, the BlueThumb organization, from what I can tell, is something that only exists in Minnesota. So if you don't live in Minnesota, this may not be something that is directly beneficial to you. The Lawns to Legumes grant is specifically for Minnesota residents. However, if there is something that exists in your state that is similar to this, please comment it below. I would love to start sharing different types of grants and organizations and things that help people do these things in their yard. Essentially, the idea of the Lawns to Legumes grant is to take spaces that are just grass or unused spaces and turn them into pollinator gardens for our pollinators. Now, why are pollinators important? I'm glad you ask. Do you like to eat? I like to eat. Pollinators help us have food. You've all heard over the years of people doing different things to help save the bees, doing things for their bees, having little tiny water stations, different flowers. And now the best thing that you can do for different pollinators in your different areas is to plant native plants. As humans have come in and taken over spaces, a lot of those organic spaces that had native plants and native shrubbery and trees and all of that, a lot of that has been taken away. However, just a small little pollinator garden can make a huge difference for pollinators in your area. But on that note, let's look at what zones mean. Because if you're someone that wants to start a pollinator garden or wants to learn more about pollinators and gardening and native plants in general, let's talk about zoning, specifically in the United States. So here you can see these are different zones for plants. Depending on the zone you live in, certain plants will be perennials while others are annuals. Now, perennial plants will come back year after year after year. Annuals will only live for one short period. So there's lots of plants that are from zone 7 or 8 that are used as annuals in Minnesota and Wisconsin, being in zone 4. They will not survive the winter. However, they will thrive here in our summers and our warm time. You might be asking yourself, why would someone even want annuals? And the reason is that generally they're pretty cheap, they flower a lot, and they look really pretty. That's why most people like putting annuals out in their yard. And also, they're pretty easy to take care of because at the end of the year, they just die. There's no overwinter care, anything of that sort. However, perennials, especially native perennials, are super important to the little biomes that are in your specific areas. So depending on where you live, you will have a different zone. Again, I am traditionally zone 4. You can see there's a little tiny blue spot in the middle. That is the Twin Cities. That is technically a zone 5 area, and that is because the metropolitan area has a heat dome. So I can, if I wanted to, plant zone 5 plants, though I do try to just stick to zone 4. It's going to be a little bit more hardy and guaranteed to last through the winter. But again, going off of different zones of different plants, depending on your zone, you'll have different native perennials. And again, this video will focus a lot on Minnesota perennials because I live in Minnesota, and that's what the pollinator grant is for. If you want to start planting more native perennials, check out the zone for where you live in. So the reason it's important to plant different plants that are native to your zone, because they will come back year after year and they will help reestablish the ecosystems and the natural biomes of before humans were even here. Now, obviously, we can't all just evacuate and let everything Mother Nature take over. Someday that's probably going to happen. But pollinators and different animals, and again, different ecosystems thrive with these native plants. And their ecosystems are being destroyed. And A lot of it is also just because people are just planting plain old grass. And while having a big, beautiful green grass lawn is very beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, it does not do anything for native bugs and animals. So again, to come full circle, this is why I usually write scripts, and I'm off script right now. The Pollinator Lawns to Legumes grant is to help people take lawn spaces that are just big empty spaces and turn it into something for pollinators. Pollinators rely on these different native plants as they travel and as they go south, for they migrate, whatever it may be. Different pollinators do different things. This helps them have food, and different types of pollinators have different spaces of which they can travel in certain periods of time. Some things like butterflies have a larger space of which they need for having access to pollinator plants. Other things have really small spaces of like only a few city blocks, and they can't go any further than that. So if there's nothing within a few city blocks and they get stuck there, they die. And those pollinators are super important to our ecosystems and everything of just having food. Again, in general, all of it comes down to these pollinators help us have crops, have plants, have food, survive. Without these pollinators, we die. They're important. So Lawns to Legumes program helps us create more pollinator spaces for those very important part of our ecosystem. And so, again, we were granted the Lawns to Legumes grant for the fall-winter period. Now, it's something that we had to apply for. You have to tell them your address and what your yard looks like. Do you have space? And I will get to this a little bit later, but there are things that you can do even if you live in an apartment. So if this is something that is important to you and you want to do something, but you feel like you can't, you can. There are things that you can do even if you don't have a yard. But we have a yard, so this video again will focus a little bit more on having that yard space. We took a very small space in our front yard and we turned it into a small pollinator garden, and this grant will then reimburse you for the different things that you purchase for that pollinator garden. So here is the process of us going through all of that. So to start off this project, we had a small webinar where we would learn a little bit more about the Lawns to Legumes program, different planting guides, different native plants to plant resources, guides, stuff like that. So we had to tune into this webinar to make sure we had all the correct resources for our project. To me, this whole idea of planting native spaces and helping our natural ecosystems come back to where they used to be really does tie into the idea of Stardew, of helping out the Junimos with reestablishing the life in the valley, doing different tasks for them, things like that. It really does tie into doing different things for your local community and your local ecosystems to help them thrive once again. We learned about different garden types, different layout types, the different pollinators in our direct area. Like I said, you can do other smaller planting areas. If you don't have a full yard, you can do potted plants on your deck. You can do a boulevard nearby. There's lots of different things that you can do. And so here we started out with, this is the space in our front yard. It's just a big green grass area. We're going to take a very small piece of this and turn it into a small pollinator garden. Our garden is only about 10 feet long at its longest part. You will see the after videos after all of this, but here's the plan. It is not this large, but this is the little layout I made of a little S shape with 2 circles, the list of different plants that I wanted to get, and then it was time to go plant shopping. So we went to Mother Earth in Minneapolis on the grantee guide on the BlueThumb website. If you're a Minnesota resident, they have different establishments listed on there that they're partnered with that sell native plants and perennials. So we went here. They had a very large selection of different perennials we could get. We picked out a variety. Some were still flowering, some were done blooming for the season, so it may not look like there's tons of flowers in the sections that we picked, but we did have a lot of flowers that we picked out. We picked out a variety of different plants. They are just done blooming for the season. They will bloom again next year after they are planted. So thank you to Mother Earth Gardens for providing us with different native plants. And so now we're going to take our plants and we're going to build our little garden in this space in our front yard. So I took a post and I made 2 circles. If you saw on the little drawing I had, it was kind of like an S shape with 2 circles that were put together. So here is me measuring and marking out the small area that we were going to use to make that S-shaped garden. If you are enjoying this video and learning about native plants, the importance of pollinators, and things of that sort. Please let me know if you're enjoying it. I do want to someday get a Master Gardener certification so I can continue to work with different programs to help educate people and help people learn more about different gardening things and native plants and the importance of conservation of our natural ecosystems. And having a Master Gardener certification will help give me some more knowledge and more resources to be able to help people like that. Now, once I had that area all mapped out, RJ went in at a later time and dug it all out so that the sod was removed and it was just dirt underneath. I don't have a video of that because he did it when I wasn't awake. I was napping, but he went through and dug that all out. So here's the space now all dug out. And now what we're going to do is we are going to take cardboard and we're going to lay it down as a weed barrier that is biodegradable underneath everything that we're going to plant on top of it. So here we're going to lay down all of that cardboard and wet it down. Now once we have the cardboard all laid down, then we're going to put our topsoil and compost on top of that cardboard, and then we're going to plant our new native plants in that dirt. You do have to dig through the cardboard so that you can get the roots of the plants down into the actual ground. The cardboard is a biodegradable weed barrier that will help with the first few years of the plants establishing themselves. Now we've got the cardboard down, we have the soil and the compost down. You can see me here sprinkling some of the clover seeds that I bought around the circle parts of the garden that I laid out. And we're starting to get our plants out there so that we can map out where we want to put the plants. I did eventually take a few pieces of cardboard to kind of map out the S shape a little bit more so we could see where we wanted to put plants. But again, here is where I was sprinkling down the clover seeds I had, and then I will map it out with more cardboard. Now that that S shape is mapped out with some cardboard as just a general lineup, we're going to start placing some of our plants where we want them placed. There is no specific order or rhyme or reason to this. It is just the layout that I picked simply for aesthetic reasons, and that's just the way that I wanted it done. You don't have to put anything in any specific order. This was just how I did it. Now that we have the placement of our plants picked out, we get to do the actual labor of taking all of these plants out of their pots and putting them in the soil. Now it was very, very hot this day, so we worked slowly, we took regular breaks, but this was the part that's probably one of the most back-breaking parts other than digging up all of the soil that RJ had done off camera. But here is us putting all the plants in the ground. After we got all of our native plants planted, now it's time to put down some mulch on top of those plants around them. So here you can see what it looks like with them placed out, and now with them planted as well, as a little before and after. And now here is where we will lay out the mulch around and on top of all of those plants. And now to give everything a good water now that it is pretty much all complete. Again, it's not a very big garden, it's just a small little space. But we can add to it over the years. I will have to replant some stuff next year because as much as these native plants are good for pollinators, the local rabbits and other critters also enjoyed eating a lot of them as a snack. So unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that we planted, especially the little smaller plants, all got eaten down to the very nub. A lot of the larger plants were okay, but I was shocked that rabbits ate all of my milkweed. I didn't know rabbits liked milkweed, but all of my milkweed got eaten. But I do have access to more milkweed pods that I can plant for next year. So here you can see more of where the rabbits took a bunch of plants out. But the clover grew very quickly. Here is what it looks like today. It is fall now. It's gotten colder. Some of the plants have died off a little bit, but that's okay because they are native perennials. They will come back next year. Now again, I am off script. I'm not following anything, so if I'm rambling or talking really fast, this is why I always rely on my scripts, and that's why you always see me looking off camera to make sure I can read them. However, if you can't tell this is something that I am passionate about, I've started gardening more ever since having a house. I try to keep house plants. As you can see, I'm a little bit of a plant person. They're right here within arm's reach. While I lived in an apartment, but if you are someone that lives in an apartment, there are different things that you can do as well. One of them being is if you have a little outdoor deck or patio area, you can do different potted gardens. There are different things that you can do to have native plants in pots out on your deck. Now, some native plants will not survive in pots. The reason things don't work for pots is because they're not in the ground and it's colder. So they get too cold and the stuff in there just gets so cold to the point that they will die. However, if you have large potted plants that are of your zone, there is a chance that they can come back and thrive each year. And now on the BlueThumb.org website with different Lawns to Legumes resources, there are things that they have that show that you can do a potted plant pollinator garden. I will be linking the BlueThumb website and the Lawns to Legumes stuff if you want to check it out. Again, it is geared toward Zone 4 and 5. If you are not Zone 4 or 5, you can grab some ideas from it, but different plants listed may not work for your area. It is very important for you to research which plants are native to your area because that is what is most important for the pollinators that live in your area, is those native plants that are native to that area. But even if you have an apartment, you can create a potted pollinator garden. Another option is you could talk to your city officials about doing a boulevard. So the boulevard is the areas that are by sidewalks or sometimes in the middle of like different streets in little smaller areas. And you can ask them, can I make a pollinator space here? Some will say yes, some will say no. But a lot of times you can just go sprinkle some wildflower seeds that are native wildflower seeds to your area. Don't just buy random flower seeds anywhere. Go to a shop nearby that sells native plants. Ask them for native wild seeds. A lot of times you can just go sprinkle them and they don't really care. However, you still want to get it approved because you don't want someone to come mow it all down if their job is to come keep all those boulevlards clean. You want to make sure that these spaces are approved by your city and local ordinances. So again, even if you don't have a house, there are still things that you can do to help your pollinators in your area. With all of this being said and done, I do want to put it out there, again, as this is very clearly something that is important to me. Recently, you've probably seen in other streamer news, if you're part of the streamer universe and keep up with different people online, Maya of Alveus Sanctuary has been doing lots of really, really wonderful work with conservation, specifically for different types of animals. Recently, she raised over $1 million in 3 days for her new project that she's doing with the Pixel Project and reintroducing different species, specifically the red wolf. And there is one other wolf, I don't remember exactly which one off the top of my head right now, but she's helping raise money to start an institute of making sure that these animals can be bred and released back into the wild to help them repopulate these very keystone species. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of what I'm passionate about in terms of plant life also is very much intertwined with conservation with both animals and wildlife as well. I'm still a very small creator at this point, but Maya was also a small creator at some point too. And so I want to put it into the universe to say that someday I hope to be able to do work similar to what she does. Whether that is being in partnership with her, with Alveus, having a sister company or organization of some sort that can partner with Alveus, or just working for Alveus in general. Something that is similar to Alveus is something that I would love to do someday. And I want to start that by, again, if you know something that is in your local state that does some sort of pollinator grant or outreach or anything that is similar to the Legumes program from BlueThumb, please tell me about it below. I want to create a document to be able to share with people for your state. Here's what you have available to you. You can apply for this grant. You can do this kind of funding. You can have these just like educational resources about specific perennials and native plants in your area or things that need help. Because there are other things that you can do in your community that are not just pollinator gardens for help. A lot of communities will have like free gardens, community gardens that you can go work with. You can volunteer at different spaces. There's so many programs that exist that I think just a lot of people don't have as much information and resources about. So if I can start helping people by having just, again, a document of different states, of different places and things that you can go for, resources, for grants, for help, again, please comment that below. I'm going to do my own research as well, but locals always know best. So if you know your state has something similar, please comment it below. And Maya from Alveus, or anyone at Alveus, if you see this video, thank you for all the work you've done. It's inspiring, and I hope that someday I can even have a fraction of the following that you have to be able to touch different places of the earth in the way that you have. I hope that I can do work like you do someday. So thank you for all you've done, Alveus. The work that you do is important, and it's something that clearly a lot of people are passionate about. And so I hope that this video can touch people who also care about those things in the same way that you do. But in conclusion, this is a much longer Stardew Valley IRL, aka gardening. If you're wondering what does Stardew have to do with this, it's that my whole page is Stardew geared. So really anything that has Stardew in the algorithm, it gets fed into the algorithm a lot more for me versus just calling this a pollinator garden thing. So that's why I do have that series named as such, because my algorithm is set up for Stardew Valley. So if you're someone that loves Stardew Valley but is also a plant person, congratulations, the algorithm worked, you're here, I'm glad you found this video. If you're someone that only likes Stardew or only likes gardening and is invested in just natural resources and all that kind of good stuff, congrats, you're coming to a merging point. If you've never played Stardew Valley, you should check it out. If you're someone that's played Stardew but has never done anything in real life for plant conservation, things of that sort, congrats. This is maybe a place where you can have a touch point to learn a little bit more. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can keep up with me on all of my social media channels. I'm TheAnimeAthlete everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, you name it. Join the Discord to ask any questions that may not have been answered in this video. Get behind the scenes content, early access to videos and more on my Patreon, and come play Stardew or talk about plants with me live on Twitch and also on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching and all of my rambling. Have a good rest of your night.